Welcome to the Den, the Dark Entertainment Network. I'm the Gothic Rose, and this is the dark tale of the day. Let me take this moment to reintroduce myself. I am the Gothic Rose, hostess of the Dark Entertainment Network. This is a channel where the news meets conspiracy theories and makes babies in my brain, and it comes out my mouth. I do this because I enjoy it. If you like this type of content, please follow along, because I'm not going to stop. Here we are again, dear fiends of the den. It is a beautiful, almost spring day outside in the Catskill Mountains of New York, but I had to stop and talk about Miss Mary Pickford and her illustrious career. And today we're diving into her vaudeville days. Now, vaudeville has to be my absolute favorite time in all of entertainment history. Vaudeville is very much an American tradition, but it has roots in commedia dell'arte from Italy, which were these traveling troupes of comedians who would put on these skits. So let's talk about vaudeville and its impact on entertainment, and of course, it gave us Miss Mary Pickford. So vaudeville is one of the oldest forms of entertainment in America. If you're wondering what vaudeville is, if you have no idea, you can look at the movie Gypsy, about Gypsy Rose Lee, who became the famous striptease performer who grew up in the shadow of her sister, Baby June, and the ultimate momager, Mama Rose. If you know the song, Everything's Coming Up Roses, Let Me Entertain You, that comes from the vaudeville era. And Mary Pickford's career is deeply intertwined with vaudeville. It provided her a platform, as it did for many aspiring actors and performers during that era. She began her acting journey in theater and in vaudeville before transitioning to silent film. So the exact troupes are less documented, but we are going to look into what I could find about them. So, one of the most interesting things that I found out about Mary Pickford is that she performed in a vaudeville troupe called Uncle Tom's Cabin, and this was during her early career. This was a popular stage adaptation of Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel, and this was frequently performed by traveling troupes in the 19th and early 20th centuries. So these performances often featured melodramatic interpretations of the story, and they were a common part of the vaudeville circuit. Mary Pickford's involvement in these productions helped her develop her acting skills and gain experience in front of live audiences, and the early exposure to the theater and vaudeville laid the foundation for her later success in silent films, which makes a lot of sense because you do really have to understand how the audience reacts to you. And then when you can take that and bring it in front of a camera, you're going to get the most authentic performance. But let's check out what this is all about, this performing troupe, because it's such an interesting name, and I want to know how everyone feels about this. So I put into AI, was this acting troupe a response to racism? And this is the answer it gave. The vaudeville troupes performing Uncle Tom's Cabin, including the one Mary Pickford was part of, were not explicitly formed as a response to racism. However, the original novel by Harriet Beecher Stowe was written as an anti-slavery work aiming to expose the horrors of slavery and promote empathy for enslaved people. The stage adaptations, while popular, often simplified or distorted the novel's themes, sometimes perpetuating racial stereotypes rather than challenging them. These performances were a product of their time, reflecting both the widespread popularity of the novel and the complex racial attitudes of the era. While they brought attention to the story's anti slavery message, they also contributed to the creation and reinforcement of certain racial caricatures which have been criticized in modern times. Very interesting. I would just like to know what you all feel about that. So, obviously, this was the turn of the 19th century, a very, very different time. It definitely is not something that would be passable by today's standards at all, but it is important to note the history of everything so that we know where we're at all the time. It's a very interesting part of her life, and of course she was a child when she was performing in vaudeville. Remember, her first film was in 1909, and she was born April 8th, 1892, and she was 17 in 1909 when she began her film career. So, it's interesting what the norm was back then, and if it aimed to do something good but got it all mixed up, it makes sense. That happens quite often, I believe. So let's talk about her other troupe. So the other troupe that Mary Pickford worked with early in her career was the Silver King. This was a play written by Henry Arthur Jones and Henry Herman, and it was a popular melodrama in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And it tells the story of a man falsely accused of murder who must clear his name and reunite with his family. Pickford's role in The Silver King was one of her early theatrical experiences, helping her develop her acting skills and gain recognition. This experience in vaudeville and stage productions laid the groundwork for her transition to silent films and her eventual rise as, we know, America's sweetheart but Canadian born. So, as I mentioned, I was talking about one of my favorite Broadway plays, and you can find it in several movies, Gypsy. And Gypsy is the story of a traveling family, a mom and two daughters, performing in vaudeville to make ends meet. And this was very popular in the United States from the 1880s to the early 1930s. And it was at the time the cornerstone of American entertainment. It mixed comedy, music, dance, magic, and more. So the appeal was its variety because audiences could enjoy a bunch of different acts lined up in a single show. It was very diverse, and it was also family friendly thanks to figures like Tony Pastor, who worked to make it respectable and accessible to all. So, with the rise of radio and film, entertainment forms in the 1930s led to vaudeville's decline, but its influence on modern entertainment, including television and stand up and comedy, remains significant, especially in the variety shows we would see, like Laugh-In or the Carol Burnett Show, Cher and her show, Sonny and Cher, before it was just the Cher show. So it was, it's had a big impact. And I think that, so we're going to have to explore the impact of vaudeville on modern cinema. But Mary Pickford, of course, is someone who got so much experience as a child in front of these audiences that by the time she got to those silent films, by the time she chose to make her last film as an actress and step back into the world of directing and producing, and by the time she became a partner in United Artists, creation of United Artists, the only woman, She had so much experience built into her from childhood and stage work and being able to adapt to the world around her. I think that that is why she was as successful as she was. So, with that, we are going to talk more about her life and legacy tomorrow. Thank you for joining me in the den.